and welcome to the Property Wealth Podcast. Today, we're diving into a topic that's crucial for any real estate investor, especially if you're looking to safeguard your investments, and that's the eviction process.
Yeah, it's a big one, isn't it? With the new rules coming in 2026, understanding the step-by-step process is more important than ever.
Absolutely. It can feel overwhelming, but we're here to break it down for you.
Right, and it's not just about the legalities. It's about understanding your rights as a landlord and your responsibilities, too.
We'll also talk about how to communicate effectively with tenants, which can really make a difference in these situations.
For sure, a good conversation can sometimes prevent an eviction altogether, and if it comes to that, knowing what to expect can ease a lot of stress.
Plus, we'll share some tips on how to protect yourself and your investment throughout this process.
And it's about building long-term wealth, so getting these things right can really pay off down the line.
Exactly. So let's get started with the first step in the eviction process.
Sarah, when we think about evictions, it's easy to get caught up in the technicalities of the process, but really, it's about much more than that. It's about financial security, especially for those of us over 40, right?
Absolutely, Mike. A lot of people in that age group are starting to think more seriously about retirement. And property can be such a solid foundation for that. But evictions can feel daunting.
For sure. Think about it. If you're relying on rental income to supplement your retirement, you want to make sure you're protecting that income stream. If a tenant isn't paying rent, it can really throw a wrench in your plans, right?
Right. And with inflation rising, it's more important than ever for investors to ensure that their properties are generating income. You don't want to find yourself in a situation where you can't cover your expenses because of a tenant issue.
Exactly. I had a client, let's call him John. He was in his early 60s and had invested in a couple of rental properties. He was counting on that rental income to help him travel and enjoy his retirement. But then, he faced an eviction situation with one of his tenants.
Oh no! How did he handle that?
Well, John was understandably stressed. He felt like his plans were slipping away. But we worked through the eviction process step by step, and it turned out to be a valuable learning experience for him. He realized that understanding the process and having a solid plan in place made him feel much more secure.
That makes total sense. It's like having a safety net, right? Knowing what to do can really ease the anxiety.
Exactly. And, it's not just about the immediate financial impact. It's about long-term wealth transfer to family, too. If you're in a situation where you're constantly dealing with tenant issues, it can take away from what you can pass on to your kids or grandkids.
That's a great point. It's not just about you anymore. It's about the legacy you're building.
Right. And if you think about the current economic trends, many people are facing challenges with job stability or fluctuating markets. Real estate can provide some level of stability, but if you're not prepared for evictions, it can become a burden instead of an asset.
Yeah, and I think a lot of people don't realize that evictions can happen to anyone, even the best landlords. It's part of the business.
Absolutely. I had another client, Lisa, who had a great relationship with her tenants for years. Then, out of the blue, one of them lost their job and couldn't pay rent. It was heartbreaking for both sides.
That must have been tough. How did she approach it?
Well, Lisa took a compassionate route initially, offering them a payment plan. But when it became clear that wasn't working, she had to go through the eviction process. It was tough, but she learned a lot about setting boundaries and the importance of having a solid lease agreement.
That's powerful. It's like she had to balance compassion with business, which is such a tricky line to walk.
Exactly. And that's why having support and knowledge about the eviction process is crucial. It makes it less personal and more about the strategy.
And for those who might be feeling overwhelmed, knowing that they're not alone in this can really help. There's a community out there and resources available to navigate these challenges.
Right. And as we move into 2026, the rules surrounding evictions might change again, so staying informed is vital. People over 40 should be proactive about understanding these rules. It can save them a lot of stress down the line.
Yes, and it's also about adapting to the market shifts. You have to be ready to pivot and adjust your strategy based on what's happening around you.
Definitely. And think about it. If you're in a position where you feel empowered and knowledgeable about handling evictions, it can give you that peace of mind. It's about building wealth, yes, but also about securing your emotional well-being.
That's such a great takeaway. It's not only about the money, it's about the life you want to build and the freedom that comes with it.
Exactly. And when people understand the eviction process, they can navigate it more confidently. They can focus on their long-term goals rather than getting bogged down by short-term setbacks.
So true. It really highlights the importance of being proactive and informed. This is a business, after all, and treating it with that mindset can lead to better outcomes.
Right. And as we transition into discussing core strategies, I think it's important to emphasize that every investor can face challenges, but it's how you respond to those challenges that will shape your success.
Yes, and having a well-thought-out plan for dealing with evictions and knowing your rights and responsibilities will not only help financially, but also give you the confidence to tackle any situation that comes your way.
Absolutely, Sarah. It's about being prepared, staying informed, and building that resilience, which ultimately leads to long-term wealth and security.
So let's dive into those core strategies. What can investors do to prepare for potential evictions while still building that wealth?
So when it comes to evictions, it's really important to have a clear understanding of the process. I mean, it can feel daunting, especially if you've never done it before, right?
Absolutely, Mike. It's one of those things that can really make or break your experience as a landlord. What's the first step you'd recommend?
Well, the first thing is to know your local laws. Every state, even city, can have different rules about evictions, so you really want to educate yourself on that. There's usually a process you have to follow, like providing notice to the tenant before you can initiate any legal action.
Right, and that notice period can vary too, can it?
Exactly. Sometimes it's just a few days, and other times it can be a month or longer. You really want to make sure you're following those guidelines closely. Otherwise, you might find yourself in hot water, and it can delay the process significantly.
That's a good point. So let's say you've done your homework and you've provided the necessary notice. What's next?
After that, if the tenant hasn't responded or rectified the situation, you would typically file an eviction lawsuit in your local court. This is often called an unlawful detainer action.
And I imagine that part can feel pretty intimidating, right?
It can be. But if you've kept good records, like communication with the tenant, payment history, and the notice you provided, that can really help your case.
So documentation is key here. What should landlords be keeping track of?
Yeah, definitely. Keep track of all communication, texts, emails, any written notices you've sent. Also, make sure to document any rent payments or lack thereof. It's all about having a solid paper trail.
And then, if it goes to court, you present that information, right?
Exactly. The court will look at the evidence and decide whether or not to grant the eviction. If you win, the court will issue a judgment, and that's when you can arrange for law enforcement to assist in the actual eviction.
That sounds straightforward, but I can see how emotions could run high during this process.
Absolutely. It can be tough, especially if you've built a relationship with the tenant. But remember, it's a business decision at the end of the day.
So once the eviction is granted, what happens next?
Well, typically, the tenant will be given a certain amount of time to vacate the property. If they don't leave, that's when law enforcement steps in to enforce the eviction.
And that's when it gets really serious, right?
Yeah, it can be difficult, but it's important to stay calm and professional throughout the entire process.
So Mike, if someone is just starting in real estate investing and they want to avoid situations like this, what are some rules of thumb they should follow?
Well, one of the first rules I always mention is the 1% rule. It's a quick way to evaluate if a property might be a good investment. Basically, you want to aim for monthly rent to be at least 1% of the purchase price.
That makes sense. So if you buy a property for $200,000, you'd want to charge around $2,000 a month in rent?
Exactly. And keep in mind that this is just a rough guideline. You'll also want to consider other factors like location, property condition, and local market trends.
Right. And in addition to that, there's the 50% rule, isn't there?
Yes, the 50% rule is another handy guideline. It suggests that about 50% of your rental income will go towards operating expenses, like maintenance, property management, and taxes.
So if you're bringing in $2,000 a month, you should expect to spend around $1,000 on expenses?
Yep, that's the idea. It helps you to budget properly and ensure that you're not overextending yourself financially.
And then there's cap rate, right?
Exactly. The capitalization rate helps you evaluate the potential return on investment for a property. You can calculate it by taking the net operating income and dividing it by the property's purchase price or current market value.
So if a property has a net operating income of $20,000 and you bought it for $200,000, your cap rate would be
10%. That would be a pretty solid cap rate, actually.
wow. That gives you a really clear picture of what to expect.
It does. And don't forget about deal evaluation checklists. Having a checklist can help you stay organized and ensure you're not missing any critical details when evaluating a property.
What kind of things should be on that checklist?
Well, you'll want to include things like property condition, location, rental market stats, potential cash flow, and any necessary repairs or renovations that might be needed.
That sounds like a comprehensive approach.
It really is. And also consider your financing options. If you're looking at a fix and flip, for example, you might want a short-term loan. On the other hand, if you're buying a rental property, you might look for a more traditional 30-year mortgage.
So many options. It's important to match your financing to your strategy, isn't it?
Absolutely. And different types of properties can also influence your financing options. For instance, multifamily units might have different requirements compared to single-family homes.
Got it. And I suppose the market conditions can play a role as well?
Yes, for sure. Understanding the market you're investing in can help you make more informed decisions.
Wow, this has been super helpful. But I imagine there are some common pitfalls that investors should be aware of, right?
Definitely. Let's dive into those next. You know, Sarah, when it comes to evictions, one of the biggest pitfalls I see investors falling into is over-leveraging.
Yeah, that makes sense. What do you mean by that?
Well, it's like they get so excited about a property or the potential for cash flow that they take on more debt than they can really handle. It's a classic mistake.
Right, I can see how that would create a lot of pressure.
Exactly. I once worked with an investor who bought a multifamily property thinking it was a gold mine, but they stretched their finances so thin they couldn't cover the mortgage when a couple of tenants fell behind on rent.
Oof, that's tough. Did they have any contingency plans in place?
Not really. They were so focused on the profits that they ignored the cash flow aspect. They didn't factor in what would happen during a downturn or if they had unexpected vacancies.
Sounds like a recipe for disaster.
It really is. And that leads us to another common mistake: bad tenants. You know, everyone wants to believe they'll find the ideal tenant, but sometimes you just don't see the red flags until it's too late.
What kind of red flags should investors look for?
Well, things like inconsistent rental history. If a potential tenant has bounced around a lot, that's usually a sign. Or if they have a history of late payments, you really have to pay attention.
So trusting your gut is important too, right?
Absolutely. But, you know, it's not just about gut feelings. Checking references and running thorough background checks can save you a lot of headaches down the line.
Makes sense. I imagine ignoring cash flow is another big mistake.
Spot on. I've seen investors buy properties without really crunching the numbers on what their monthly expenses would be. They think, oh, this rent looks good, but then they forget about maintenance costs, taxes, and other hidden expenses.
So they end up with a property that's not really making them any money?
Exactly. I remember one investor who bought a property in a trendy neighborhood, thinking it would be a cash cow. But after a few months, they realized they hadn't accounted for the skyrocketing property taxes and maintenance costs.
That sounds frustrating.
It was. They ended up losing money every month, and when they tried to raise the rent, they found the market wouldn't support it.
Wow. I can see how that could spiral out of control pretty quickly.
For sure. And then there's the issue of timing the market. I've had clients who thought they could wait for the perfect moment to buy.
Right, like waiting for prices to drop?
Exactly. They hesitate, thinking prices will come down. But in doing so, they miss out on good opportunities. Meanwhile, the market keeps climbing.
So timing can be a bit of a gamble, huh?
Definitely. It's better to buy when you find a property that fits your criteria rather than trying to time the market perfectly.
And what about hidden costs? You mentioned those earlier.
Oh, those can be sneaky. Investors often overlook things like property management fees, insurance, and even utilities if they're included in the rent.
So it's important to have a comprehensive budget, right?
Exactly. And having a buffer is key. I always advise clients to set aside a percentage of their rental income for unexpected expenses.
That's smart.
I remember one case where an investor didn't set aside enough for repairs. They had a plumbing issue that turned into a major expense because they didn't have the funds available to fix it right away.
Yikes! That sounds like a nightmare.
It was, and they ended up having to take out a loan to cover the costs, which just put them further into debt.
That's a tough lesson to learn.
It is, but it also highlights the importance of being proactive. Spotting red flags early can make all the difference.
So what are some proactive steps an investor can take?
Well, first, always have a solid lease agreement that outlines everything clearly. And also, keep communication open with your tenants.
Like regular check-ins?
Exactly. If you notice a tenant is paying late, reach out to them early before it becomes a bigger issue.
That's a great point.
And, regular property inspections can help catch maintenance issues before they turn into costly repairs.
So it's really about staying on top of things, isn't it?
Right. By being proactive, you can mitigate a lot of the risks associated with being a landlord.
And if something does go wrong, it's not the end of the world.
Exactly. Having a plan for how to handle issues, like evictions, can save you a lot of stress.
So what would you say are the next steps for someone who's been through a tough eviction process?
Well, first take a moment to reflect on what went wrong. Learn from the experience.
And maybe even seek advice from others in the field, right?
Absolutely. Networking with other investors can provide valuable insights that you might not have considered.
So it's about building that support system?
Exactly. And also, don't rush into your next investment. Take the time to do your due diligence and make sure you're ready.
That sounds like solid advice.
It is. And remember, every setback can be a stepping stone if you approach it with the right mindset.
Love that. Let's transition to how someone can recover or avoid these pitfalls in the future.
So, as we dive into the next steps, it's really about putting what we've discussed into action, right?
Absolutely, Mike. It can feel overwhelming, but there are ways to make it manageable.
Right. First things first, if you're dealing with an eviction or thinking about it, make sure you have a checklist handy.
Oh, that's a good idea. What should be on that checklist?
We'll start with the legal requirements in your area. Every state has different laws regarding eviction notices, timelines, and court processes, so check your local regulations first.
Yeah, it's crucial to know what's required legally. Otherwise, things can get messy fast.
Exactly. And once you have that down, I'd recommend using a tool like Zillow to gauge the current rental market.
Right. Zillow can help you see what similar properties are renting for. That can give you an idea of what your property should be priced at.
And then there's the Bigger Pockets calculator. It's a fantastic tool for analyzing potential rental properties.
Yeah, I love that one. It helps you break down all the costs and potential income, which is super handy, especially when you're considering new investments.
For sure. Plus, if you're looking at a specific deal, Rent-A-Meter is great to quickly assess if the rent you're charging is in line with the market.
Oh, and don't forget about local MLS access. If you can connect with a real estate agent, they can give you insights that online tools might miss.
Absolutely. That local knowledge can be invaluable. And speaking of local, joining a meetup group can really boost your learning curve.
Oh, totally. It's a great way to meet other investors, share experiences, and learn from each other.
Right. And starting small is key. You don't have to analyze 10 deals a week. Just pick one to focus on.
Yeah, I like that. Like committing to one deal analysis each week. It's manageable and will build your confidence over time.
And while you're at it, consider listening to podcasts focused on real estate investing. There are some great ones out there that share real experiences and strategies.
Yes, I'm a big fan of Bigger Pockets podcast. They have real investors sharing their journeys, which can be really relatable.
And don't forget about books. The book on rental property investing by Brandon Turner is a classic. It covers everything from finding deals to being a successful landlord.
Oh, that's a must-read. It really breaks things down and makes it less intimidating.
Exactly. And, it's about developing habits, too. If you set aside just half an hour a week to read or listen to a podcast, that adds up over time.
Right. And you could also spend time networking with other investors, even if it's just online.
Yes. Connecting with others can open doors to partnerships or mentorship opportunities.
And don't overlook the importance of self-care during this process. Investing can be stressful, so make sure you're taking time for yourself.
Definitely. A clear mind will help you make better decisions. So remember, start where you are and take it step by step.
Exactly. And with these tools in your pocket, you're ready to move forward. Let's recap what we've covered today.
Well, Sarah, we've covered quite a bit today, huh?
Absolutely, Mike. It's such a complex topic, but really important for anyone in the real estate game.
Right? So let's recap some key takeaways. First off, understanding the eviction process, it's crucial. Knowing the specific steps and the required notices can really help you avoid unnecessary headaches down the line.
Yeah, and that leads us to the importance of documentation. Keeping everything in writing, from notices to communication with tenants. It's like having a solid safety net.
Exactly. And don't forget about the legal requirements. Each state has its own rules, so being informed about those can save you from potential pitfalls.
For sure. And speaking of pitfalls, the emotional aspect of evictions can't be overlooked. Approaching the situation with empathy, while still being firm, can make a big difference.
Yep, a compassionate approach can help maintain your reputation as a landlord, which is important for your long-term success.
Well said, Mike. It's all about building that wealth in a way that feels right for you. Real estate can be a powerful tool if you navigate it wisely.
Absolutely. So, listeners, if you found value in today's discussion, we'd love it if you could like and subscribe to our channel.
And don't forget to comment below with your biggest takeaway or any questions you might have. Also, share this episode with someone over 40 who's looking to invest in property. It could really help them.
Next time, we'll dive into Section 8 rentals, the pros, cons, and how to set them up. It's going to be an insightful conversation.
I can't wait. Thanks for joining us today. And remember, every step you take in real estate is a step towards building your wealth.
Take care, everyone, and happy investing.
Bye for now.